We all understand and know that there is only one Lake Tahoe in the world.
It's more than just the natural beauty. It's more than just a refreshing view. People come here once and they want to come back.
It is like living in a national park, and that takes extra special care and attention.
An ecosystem is very sensitive, and it's also very easy to destroy. The difficult aspect comes when you try to restore it. It becomes very expensive.
We know that Lake Tahoe has only a handful of years left.
People are involved and engaged across the board to a very high degree, and that's really what you need, especially with a place that has as many visitors and as many pressures on it as this lake does.
Taking care of Tahoe is going to be a commitment for the generations. It's always going to be something that we need to do.
It's like Tahoe is a dream for everyone. It's this beautiful, beautiful cup of incredibly clear water up here for everyone to know it's here for us and for our children.
Nestled high in the Sierra Nevada, bluer than the sky, more than 1,600 feet deep, lies a lake called Tahoe. For 2 million years, it has existed virtually unchanged, a serene portrait of beauty, unique in the world, a dream to last forever. Yet for Lake Tahoe, this dream has become threatened.
We didn't get where we are today in a couple of years or even a couple of decades.
You have to take care of the place you live in. You cannot continually take from it, not give back to it.
Today, Lake Tahoe, the jewel of the Sierra, is in a state of environmental emergency, with the surrounding forest at risk of catastrophic wildfire. Where about 40 years ago, it was possible to look 100 feet down into waters so incredibly clear that Mark Twain once wrote, "The boat seemed to be floating on air." Tahoe now has lost, on average, 1 foot of clarity per year since the 1960s, and the once crystal waters are becoming clouded by algae and sedimentation.
I've been here almost my whole life. I saw what Lake Tahoe looked like in the 50s, completely different now. I mean, the algae is proliferated to such an extent, it's hard to compare.
When I moved here, there was no algae anywhere. It amazed me that how could algae not grow? And in the 25 years since I've been here, it's become not only noticeable, it's borderline disgusting. If we let this go, we're letting a treasure for eons and generations go.
For centuries, Lake Tahoe's earliest inhabitants, the Washoe Native American tribe, demonstrated a deep respect for the fragile environment that was their home. Their walk softly values enabled them to exist in harmony with the lake and posed no threat to its safety. In fact, much of the damage that today affects the Lake Tahoe Basin has occurred in only the last 150 years, a split second in the lake's long lifespan.
The forests that we have today are basically a legacy of all the choices that we made back in the past.
It was the discovery of silver in Virginia City, Nevada in the 1860s that caused the first lasting damage to Lake Tahoe's wilderness.
If you've been to Virginia City, you know there are no trees there, but they needed lumber to build the town and to shore up the mines, and this is where that lumber came from. All the trees were taken out.
When white men came to the lake, they were looking at logging and timbering the whole area, and as we went through even the 60s, most of the development happened on sensitive shorelines and areas that probably shouldn't have been developed if we were trying to protect the lake.
Clear cutting of the Tahoe Basin bared the hills, and without roots to hold the soil in place, massive erosion brought sediment rushing unchecked into the lake, clouding the clear waters and altering the fragile ecosystem. Finally exhausting the resources of the Tahoe Basin, the loggers moved onward, and with their departure, growth slowly would return to Tahoe's hillsides. But it would not be the growth of a natural, healthy forest. The clear-cutting had done permanent damage.
We look at the deep forests today, they look so natural, but these forests are unhealthy, they're not diverse, and there are major fire hazards as well.
Everything was cut down at one time, and so that everything that came back basically came back in one time frame.
And that's not a healthy forest. They're like matchstick forests. Instead of being big, healthy trees, they say that the early pioneers could ride between the trees. They were that far apart on a horse. And today you look at most of the forest and it's too dense, too crowded.
The result today is that we have a much heavier fuel concentration and the threat of fire.
They have branches that tend to grow all the way to the ground, so that fire can get up into that tree very easily and get up into the crown and the general canopy of the forest and become a crown fire, which is really the most horrific kind of fire you can have.
It's very difficult to restore something after a catastrophic event. It's very difficult to destroy pollutants that people put in without even realizing it.
Though the damaging impacts of the Comstock clearcutting are still evident in the forest today, the waters of Lake Tahoe proved to be more resilient and gradually regained much of their former clarity.
The lake itself brought itself back. I mean, it's a beautiful body of water and nature took care of itself.
That tells us that even after catastrophic degradation, this lake has the capacity to recover.
But in the late 1950s, a new and more mobile automotive society rediscovered Tahoe's shores, and in the building boom that followed, 1/3 of the lake's clarity would again be lost.
People started moving up here, buying property up here, building cabins up here, and there were no controls at that time.
With little regard to the surrounding environment, roads were paved, homes built, creeks and streams rerouted, and marshes filled in, upsetting the delicate balance between the lake itself and the natural forests, streams, and meadows that once surrounded it.
Most of the Tahoe area was developed at a time when we weren't very conscious about what we did environmentally. So man came in and developed projects and things without thinking about the environment.
Over the next 3 decades, thousands of homes, condominiums, hotel and motel rooms were constructed near the Tahoe shore. Local land use plans projected a population at Lake Tahoe of up to 800,000 people, roughly the size of present-day San Francisco, with freeways and high-rise towers ringing the lake.
It's hard for us in this time frame to look back 30 years ago and try to understand that culture. It was a development culture. It was a maximizing the buildable extent of the land.
More than 75% of the lake's wetlands, 50% of its meadows, and 35% of the riparian areas, critical filters for the lake, would be lost to development.
For everything we build, everything we throw in the water, what goes up in the sky usually ends us down in the lake.
People do need to be educated that it took many, many years for this problem to happen.
As Tahoe threatened to give way beneath the pressures of development, many concerned groups and agencies worked to protect the fragile ecosystem. And in 1969, lawmakers in California and Nevada answered their call with the creation of the TRPA, or Tahoe Regional Planning Agency, a bi-state organization whose initial role it would be to oversee development and put a curb on runaway growth.
I think without the TRPA in place, Lake Tahoe would have been beyond recovery a long time ago.
Well, TRPA provides the glue. I mean, it really helps provide a central focus for all the different agencies to come together, agree upon the goals, agree upon the timelines, work out our different issues. They really provide the facilitation that's necessary for all of these different agencies to work together to accomplish their goals.
It's essential to have some governing body at the lake. TRPA has made North Shore a beautiful place to live. If it wasn't for TRPA 20 years ago, there'd be condos and timeshares and there'd be stuff everywhere.
And they have a very noble mission. Sometimes that mission doesn't always fit with everyone's personal interest or personal wish, but for the collective good of the environment.
One of the unique roles that TRPA has is trying to correct the mistakes that have been made in the past.
Through the devoted efforts of both public agencies and private groups, uncontrolled growth in the Tahoe Basin was greatly reduced, but the clarity of the waters would continue to decline.
The public perception is that the lake isn't in crisis. So one of our biggest challenges is getting the message out that it is a fragile lake.
The defining point in Lake Tahoe's future came with a warning from the scientific community that more urgent measures must be taken immediately to save Lake Tahoe from permanent damage.
many millions of people who want to come to Lake Tahoe to what should or could have been a national park setting, but is developed by man, and we need to try to accommodate them in a very environmentally sensitive way and educate them.
To save Lake Tahoe, we're going to have to save the whole ecosystem. We're going to have to clean the air. We're going to have to control erosion. We're going to have to bring back health to the forests, and we're going to have to take care of the plant and animal species that reside there.
If no one was living here, it would be this would be a national park today. And national parks have their problems too, but we have far more acute issues because of the number of people who live here and the number of people who recreate here.
At the request of the TRPA and its partners, Nevada Senator Harry Reid and California Senator Dianne Feinstein began to push at the federal level for support. Their efforts resulted in the Presidential Forum on Lake Tahoe, which took place in 1997 and marked a turning point in the effort to save the lake. Attended by President Bill Clinton and Vice President Al Gore, this forum resulted in the signing of an executive order and then future legislation, the Lake Tahoe Restoration Act, which focused widespread attention on the urgency of changing Lake Tahoe's fate. But with the federal government, 2 states, 5 counties, dozens of local jurisdictions, and thousands of private property owners in the basin, just whose lake was it to save?
With the number of political jurisdictions, the number of organizations and agencies, the fact that no one group really can do all of this alone, was a part of the problem, was a large part of the problem.
It was agreed that to save the lake, a strong partnership had to be forged. Though the many organizations and agencies involved had different purposes, all federal, state, and local governments, as well as property owners, agreed to share in the responsibility and cost of restoring Lake Tahoe and preserving it for future generations.
The lake is a beautiful place, both for the locals and for folks who visit from throughout the world, but it is a big challenge in trying to keep it that way. It takes partnerships from all the agencies and all the folks in the business community and the local community.
In cooperation with experts in the scientific, environmental, and business communities, including the Lake Tahoe Transportation and Water Quality Coalition, in spring 1998, the TRPA adopted the Lake Tahoe Environmental Improvement Program, or EIP, an ambitious and aggressive environmental improvement plan dedicated to restoring the Tahoe Basin to health.
We are the ones on the cutting edge of the technology involved with restoration work here at Lake Tahoe. People often say, gee, what are they doing at other lakes? Haven't you looked at other places? And in fact, other places are looking to us.
This has never been done anywhere in the country, so we're exploring new ground. And I have to say that we're good explorers.
In the global sense of Lake Tahoe, what we are doing as a regulatory agency, we are charged with the tremendous task of ensuring that the clarity of the lake and the environment and the scenic values are all maintained.
The entire congressional delegation has helped secure federal funding of more than $300 million for the EIP. Senator John Enson's sponsorship of the Southern Nevada Public Lands Management Act has been instrumental in bringing a consistent and predictable flow of funding to Lake Tahoe to ensure restoration projects get accomplished. The balance of funding for the EIP is provided by the states of California and Nevada, local governments, and also the private sector. This initial funding has made hundreds of lake-saving projects possible. But with the EIP just in its beginning stages, continual funding and a long-term commitment will be needed to help Lake Tahoe move toward a dream of restoration.
We're looking at issues, water issues, scenic issues, fish habitat, natural beauty, wildlife. I think everybody's goals face in the same direction.
We've been on a 10-year plan starting in 1997 when President Clinton was out here, and I think that people have seen the results. We've seen some improvements in lake clarity. We've seen a real effort by each of the jurisdictions to find the money that's needed for these projects, to work together to get a common direction.
The Environmental Improvement Program is one of the few things I've seen in politics where everybody seems to want to get to the same place. I think if we're all working together towards this same goal, it's just going to be a tremendous benefit for Lake Tahoe.
Well, I think what's most impressive up here is how much the business community and the environmental community both recognize how important the quality of the experience is up here.
The Environmental Improvement Program has so many moving parts, not only from acquiring the funding and the investment needed to do these kinds of expensive projects, but actually getting the projects on the ground.
I think our greatest challenge has been also our greatest success, in that there really aren't very many projects in the EIP that can be done by one entity or can be done in a vacuum and have a successful project.
Hundreds of EIP projects are currently underway. Many have already been completed, and many more will be under construction in the near future. EIP projects have reduced fuels and fire hazards on more than 18,000 acres, restored over 367 acres of sensitive stream zones, treated more than 1,000 acres of stormwater runoff, and reduced erosion on hundreds of miles of roadway. As a result of the EIP, residents of Lake Tahoe play a vital role in maintaining and restoring the clarity of the lake. The EIP requires that all developed properties owned at Lake Tahoe must comply with environmental guidelines called Best Management Practices, or BMPs.
BMP stands for Best Management Practices, and it means exactly what it sounds like. It's a way of keeping our lake more beautiful by having less nutrients going into the lake.
The number one factor affecting Lake Tahoe's clarity is fine sediment, or dirt. An important BMP practice is the use of native plants, which have a root soil that holds dirt in place to keep it from moving.
We'd like homeowners in the basin to protect their soil and make their properties look beautiful by installing native vegetation.
Every property owner in the Tahoe Basin, private or commercial, has a responsibility to implement these best management practices, which involve controlling erosion and retrofitting their properties.
We try to make these measures simple so that homeowners can take action themselves and install a lot of the BMPs on their own.
Examples of BMPs include trenches to infiltrate roof and driveway runoff, paving your driveway, and covering bare soil with plants and mulch.
This is a great environmentally friendly paving product. It's called pervious concrete, and it's just like concrete except without the sand in the mix. So you can pour water right on this surface and it will soak directly through it and into a subsurface dry well system, a subsurface infiltration system that's going to store that runoff.
Here's a very simple application. This is bark that you can find at any orchard store, and what this does is it helps stabilize the slope by keeping the dirt in place and keeping, once again, those nutrients back in the ground where they belong.
I think BMPs are probably one of the most common sense approaches to cleaning and keeping our environment pristine. You can see that it works.
A lot of it is just educating the homeowners around the lake as to what they can do around their homes, around their businesses and their traffic patterns to make sure that they're not adversely impacting the lake. A lot of it just comes down to better education of both the folks who live here and the visitors who come here every summer.
We believe that the BMP program is evolving in a tremendous way, that actually people are more inspired to do the right thing because people are motivated by other people.
The net result is you end up with a beautiful property that's well maintained, well landscaped, and you've done something good for the environment at the same time.
If we can take these steps together to make this program a success and show that Lake Tahoe is responding in a positive way, I think this program could expand to other parts of the country and even the world.
In addition to erosion control, substantial progress has been made on lake-saving projects that repair damage to water and air quality, forests and meadows, fish and wildlife, and also seek to restore scenic views and enhance recreation. The Lake Tahoe Outlet Project was initially designed as an air quality project and addressed conflicts between traffic and pedestrians at the intersection at Fanny Bridge in Tahoe City.
The entrance to North Lake Tahoe here in Tahoe City is one of the most congested spots in the basin, and quite often the traffic counts show that it is the most congested spot. A lot of our trail segments dead-ended at various complicated sites that we couldn't get them through, and people would ride up and then have to be forced into the traffic along the highway, and conflicts with vehicles, motor vehicles, RVs.
We took a look at trying to get as many pedestrians off of Fanny Bridge as possible. That was a high traffic point and a point of congestion.
The project's goal was to connect two bike trails that converged at the National Historic Site at the Truckee River Dam, built in 1913, a site many visitors and residents in Tahoe call Fanny Bridge. The project also improved the scenic quality of the area and helped solve water quality problems related to erosion.
There were 2 old dilapidated restaurant buildings on site that were taken down as part of this project. The whole area was restored, numerous trees planted, hundreds and hundreds of shrubs, revegetation all along the riverbank.
In partnership with the Tahoe City Public Utility District, California State Parks, and the Bureau of Reclamation, the project was designed to preserve as much of the significance of the historical Fanny Bridge Dam site as possible, while creating a beautiful trail along the Truckee River that connected through the backside of the dam, thereby addressing air quality, increasing recreational opportunities, and enhancing public safety.
People approaching the area can now actually see where Lake Tahoe is instead of having to ask. It is a very beautiful project, and we had determined that since this is such a highly visible area, that why keep it simple? Why not tie in the theme that we had with previous projects in town, with a lot of granite rock work, with a lot of paver surfaces, with a lot of vegetation to really enhance the area.
The project complemented work done to restore Commons Beach and also provided the opportunity to educate the public about the fragile environment and the EIP partners working to protect it through interpretive signage.
Every time you stop at the site, you'll see people leaning over the panels and reading them to each other, looking at them, then going and looking at what we're talking about in the panels.
There's been a tremendous amount of cooperation. The 3 partners who historically there's been some bureaucracy associated with trying to work together on things. In the case of this project, everything came together and all of the partners came along willingly.
We had a dream that we could do this project, and it was only with the leadership of TRPA and their project support staff that we could make this become a reality.
The EIP's critical forest health projects throughout the basin not only reduce the risk of fire, but also help restore the overcrowded and diseased forests to health. They also have a positive impact on wildlife and water quality. The U.S. Forest Service manages more than 80% of the land at Lake Tahoe and plays a major role in watershed restoration, vegetation management, land acquisition, and recreation, which includes the elimination of unneeded roads around the lake.
I think the greatest challenge we face here in the basin, no matter what projects we do, is getting across and changing the mindset that we can do a quick fix. It's a very long-term process. It's a generational process.
The Marlett Lake Trail Forest Project dealt with one of the most popular recreational trails in the Lake Tahoe Basin, the hiking trail to Marlett Lake, which connects to the Tahoe Rim Trail.
North Canyon here is an extremely busy place. This canyon is just really congested. Everybody wants to get up to see Marlett. We have equestrians, we have hikers, we have mountain bikers, and there are conflicts between all those users.
The presence of so many different types of visitors on the same road presented Nevada State Parks with the challenge of redesigning the routes in the North Canyon to provide better access for the diverse groups.
Our solution to that problem is to separate those uses and to get the hikers and the equestrians, to give them an alternative route up this trail. People can have an overall better experience.
The complex project, begun in 2002, required countless hours of work in the planning stages to achieve the best possible use of the trails.
We're formalizing access. We're creating a trail that people can use to get to where they want to go. And if you don't have formal access for people, they tend to go and do what they want to do anyway. So this project has been a great improvement to the trail system that we have here back in North Canyon. This has been a big project for Nevada State Parks. This trail project has given people access into parts of this canyon that they did not have before.
By keeping visitors on designated trails versus blazing trails of their own, Lake Tahoe is further protected from erosion and other damage. Other completed EIP projects include the 15th Street Bike Trail in South Lake Tahoe, which enhances recreation and improves water quality.
Although this project's only 1 mile of bike trail, I feel it's probably the most important mile in our city limits. This little section here will take them across a meadow, across a bridge, so it won't disturb the meadow, and take them to existing bike trails and to existing bike rental facility.
What's special about this bridge is that it concentrates use and focuses use above the wetland area, above the meadow area, and gives that wetland area an opportunity to restore itself and also gives the ephemeral seasonal spring melt flows an opportunity to travel underneath the bridge unobstructed. And that's really what we're looking for, is to get that clean water through our natural filtering system into the lake.
Begun in 2002, the 15th Street Bridge was recently completed and has been an enormous success for recreation and for the environment as well.
This trail, although it's less than a mile long, again, is a really critical piece in the network. I see it used by families and little kids and grandparents pushing strollers, people walking their dogs. It's wonderful. It's what makes this community a special place to live.
A lot of the things that we're improving people don't see as being degraded. The meadows look like a beautiful meadow, but in reality the groundwater has left, the level has left, and so what we're doing, these projects will increase that. It's not something they're ever going to see necessarily, but that meadow will, and the result will be a better Lake Tahoe.
People started using this bridge before it was done. As a matter of fact, we had a cyclist following the steamroller as they were rolling out the concrete on the asphalt on the trail.
Along with the restoration of the meadow beneath, the importance of the bridge above as an enhancement to recreation has been a benefit to air quality as well. EIP projects are in place throughout the Tahoe Basin. Many of the projects you see along the highways and in meadows and streams are helping to improve the lake and the surrounding environment. So when you see the logo, you'll know that the EIP is hard at work, improving Lake Tahoe for you and future generations. The years ahead for Lake Tahoe will be a time of innovation, excitement, and challenge, especially in these difficult financial times. The size and diversity of the partnerships in the EIP have been its greatest strength and will result in a lasting environmental reward for Lake Tahoe, many times greater than any single contribution.
I think people are becoming more aware every day that it takes all of us to maintain this beautiful place. It's just not the role of government, it's just not the role of business, it's just not the role of any one individual, it's everyone working together.
What we have seen among legislators is a real willingness to commit funds in the here and now to make this a place that we're proud to pass on to our children.
You have to take care of the place you live in. You cannot continually take from it, not give back to it. From a business standpoint, the economy and the environment are intertwined, and in Lake Tahoe in particular, you cannot have one without the other.
Every little thing that each person does makes a difference. Every little thing that someone doesn't do makes a better difference.
Saving the lake is a hard thing to do. Not impossible, but it's a hard thing to do. Putting these improvements in is step one. Maintaining them, operating them, caring for this place is the long term that needs to happen.
It's going to be those people in future generations that are going to be the judges of the quality of our work today.
We have to have the emerald quality, we have to have the depth of the lake, we have to have the things that make Lake Tahoe unique and special.
If you bottled it up and sold it at the price of designer water, it'd be worth $300 trillion. So in any way you do the measurement, it's worth everything we can do to save it for not only this generation, but of course future generations.
If you're going to have this, you've got to do your due diligence to keep it under control, or you lose the whole environment and the beauty of that environment. And that's what this effort is all about.
In the end, the success story of Lake Tahoe's environmental improvement program will be about people. People who came together, answered a call, and discovered what it takes to preserve a dream. The legacy is theirs to leave.